My ex-students from high school are just useful for picking up trash. It was the manager who said the worst. I sweat in the morning putting out the trash, and he belittles me cruelly. It turned out to be a mistake, my rare trash duty. Do you work as a janitor now? Simply head home after completing the nasty chores in a hurry. I saw it as a sarcastic dig from a longtime rival, but it appears the management has forgotten who I am. That only serves to aggravate me further. How could someone who graduated from Harvard forget the individuals they hurt? I made the decision to present the facts to this conceited manager. You're fired. The manager's face froze when I stated those remarks because he was taken aback by the sudden change in tone. He was too shocked to contest it. Nothing could have damaged the manager's dignity more than hearing from someone he always deferred to that he wasn't needed. In front of me, I could see the manager's face become really red. I defeated my insecurities that day. I am Jackson. I work as a janitor at my brother's firm and am 52 years old. I'm only a cleaning lady, I never finished high school, and I've never worked a full-time job. And yet my brother Robert, with all his uselessness, welcomed me with open arms. Since we were little, we have been together. Our well-off, financially secure parents spent a lot of money to make sure we had a good upbringing. Robert lived up to their expectations, but I never could keep up in school or on the sports field. My parents' hopes gradually switched to Robert, and I was all but forgotten. Even though Robert was encouraging and polite, I thought that was embarrassing. You move at your own speed. Don't stress over it. I never saw any progress, even with tutors and extracurricular activities. I was so frustrated that I was unable to accept what my brother had said. Upon realizing that I would never be able to match Robert, I quit trying to study and left middle school. My brother went to an exclusive institution and developed his academic record over time. But I had no luck in the employment market. An employer would never take on a high school dropout. It was unbearable to be a shut-in at home and to hear out my brother's accomplishments. I began to regret my existence. Eventually, when I was in my 40s, our parents went away from disease. My brother extended an offer to hire me as a janitor at his business. If you're okay with it, why not try working here? My brother, who is still quite kind, offered to help because he was worried about the health effects of me being stuck at home. I accepted, feeling both happy and frustrated at the same time. I reasoned that it was better than doing nothing after our parents passed away. But when I joined, I was thrust into an unanticipated inferno. Cars are sold by my brother's company. Cleaning the office and the car storage places is part of the job description. To help me out, my brother employed me without disclosing our relationship. I was starting to get used to the job when something happened that completely threw me off. As usual, I was cleaning the desks at the office when a woman approached me out of nowhere. The place you clean has an awful stench. Could you please quit working so shoddily? I took aback at the abrupt critique. I was so embarrassed that I apologized right away, but the woman continued to be threatening. I don't want an apology. Please just stop cleaning my desk and stay away from any areas that our clients use. It will be disrespectful if they smell you. I felt like trash being treated by this woman. I took a quick look at her name tag, which stated Nancy Anderson. I continued saying I was sorry, not wanting to cause any trouble, even though she was also the manager. Nancy dismissively waved me away. This explains why I detest janitors. Please don't touch anything significant because you can't even get rid of the stench of your old guy. Her attitude was incredibly conceited. I controlled my growing rage and completed my daily tasks. She was an exceptional Harvard graduate who had recently been promoted to manager, which I later verified with my brother. I was thankful for my job, but I couldn't stand to be treated like garbage. I was told I smelled horrible when I was cleaning the other day. My day was destroyed by her constant criticism, even after I apologized. My brother gave a deep, heavy sigh as I told him about the rough treatment. Once more, she is incredibly talented, but she has a severe personality disorder. Her upbringing in a harsh environment has made her reject anyone she thinks is flawed. It's preferable to stay away from her because of the numerous accidents that have occurred in the organization. It was obvious that my brother was having problems and needed help. The worst feeling is when someone with an accomplished career disparages you. Why did I have to put up with this abuse when I was simply doing my job? Sensing unfairness, I returned to work the following day, only to have the manager face me once more. Despite yelling at me to leave my desk yesterday, my trash wasn't picked up. Now she was whining about the trash not being picked up. There is a tiny trash can on each desk for modest paperwork waste. After an incident in which crucial documents were thrown into these bins, the corporation decided that each employee should be responsible for handling their own trash. The manager, however, was incensed over the uncollected rubbish. It's the rule that individuals handle their own trash. I apologized profusely, not wanting to incite any ire, but the manager refused to back down. Rather, she escalated her aggression. Are you paid, correct? You ought to give to those of us who earn the highest income. Or do you believe you can handle my work? High school dropouts should do this kind of work. Dropouts should handle dirty work. Her remarks wounded my heart because I dropped out of high school myself. People in this country despise those without formal education or employment background. It has to do with corporate policies, not status or education. There was an issue recently when significant documents were discovered in the garbage. Everyone needs to handle their own garbage in order to stop this. She ought to be aware of this matter as a manager. She could not have been unaware of it. But she started to fabricate her own narrative of what had happened. Obviously, I'm aware of it. I don't care that some of our staff look to be stupid. I would never commit such an error. Are you accusing me, or what? She looked at me like I was accusing her, and her absurd reasoning, that rules didn't apply to her, because she didn't make mistakes, was astounding. What a nasty custodian. How is this dirty, useless man allowed to work for the company? You can be fired at any time by my simple command. Follow orders without hesitation. She said whatever she wanted, not realizing that I was the brother of the CEO. How she interpreted events to fit her narrative eluded me. Reluctantly, I promised to pick up her trash because I understood there was no use in explaining company policies to her. That day, when I told my brother about the incident, he appeared contrite. I apologize for the hassle. Nancy may be trying to get at you. She may be intentionally targeting you out of revenge. My brother expressed regret, but I thought I ought to have apologized first because I believed my incapacity was bothering and creating issues for my brother. It was really uncomfortable for me. I began to feel that as a recent high school dropout, it might be best for me to give up my job. At that moment, my brother made a surprising suggestion. It's not necessary for you to tidy the main office right now. Consider working somewhere else. We'd intend to shortly open a new office. The abrupt idea of a transfer stunned me. A cleaning staff member, such as myself. Surely this is a joke. My brother claimed that there was an extraordinary labor shortage. Even basic things, he argued, would be beneficial. I would be moving to a regional office, thanks to my brother's quick thinking and the changing times. I had assumed that my brother and other highly educated individuals would be understanding until that point. I learned from talking to that management that it might not always be the case. The reason my brother was so incredibly wonderful was because he was my sibling. When I realized this, I was once again grateful that he had hired me. After 10 years, I made my first long overdue visit to the main office. I thought about the office and how it had not altered throughout the years. I am in this position now because I was a janitor here. While I was taking out the garbage and reflecting, I happened to run into Nancy, the notorious manager. She said something familiar, but in rage when she noticed me carrying the trash bags. High school dropouts are only good for taking out the trash. It was she who spoke the worst. I was sweating in the morning, bringing out the trash, when she cruelly made fun of me. It turned out to be a mistake, my rare trash duty. And more janitor. Simply head home after completing the nasty chores in a hurry. I took it to be a sarcastic remark from a longtime rival, but the manager didn't seem to recognize me. That infuriated me even more. How could someone who graduated from Harvard forget the individuals they hurt? I made the decision to tell this self-centered manager, "You're fired." The manager's face froze when I stated those remarks because he was taken aback by the sudden change in tone. She was told she wasn't required by someone she usually denigrated, and she was too shocked to protest. There was nothing more damaging to the manager's ego. In front of me, I noticed her face getting really red. "Janitor, don't get arrogant. Are you aware of who I am? This company employs me as a manager. I have the power to terminate you if I don't like you." She had told me the same thing once before. She had obviously forgotten all about me. Not only that, but she had overlooked the most recent alterations to the organizational chart. "I apologize, but a manager lacks that power. It's you who is at fault. A month ago, we made everyone aware of this. Did you fail to verify?" The manager seemed perplexed when I pointed out her error, seemingly unaffected by my assurance. She was startled by my surprising answer, and drops of perspiration were falling from her brow. "What do you mean?" She tried not to show her anger, but it was impossible to disguise her calmness. After all of this discussion, she most likely hadn't looked over the crucial paperwork if she still didn't comprehend. I chose to give this inexperienced manager a detailed explanation, saying, "My brother actually gave me the firm a month ago so that he could focus on starting a new enterprise. Consider becoming the CEO from a janitor. I know, it's difficult to believe. I felt it was a joke when my brother suggested it while I was working at the new office. I'm considering giving you full control of this business. You followed and studied my work for 10 years. I'll be available for consultation when I turn it over, so don't worry. Besides, wouldn't it be amazing to disprove everyone? A CEO who dropped out of high school and succeeded could be a source of inspiration." Although my brother spoke with optimism, I was so anxious that I was unable to sleep for days. He's always been the kind of person who must accomplish everything in his path. It appeared that he was genuinely interested in pursuing his proposal this time. I then worked for him as his assistant, where I gained managerial experience. My brother gave me the reins 10 years later, once I had mastered all the required tasks. It appeared that the manager was unaware of the full move, although having previously been informed about it as a crucial business issue. I've taken over my brother's firm entirely. You are a manager who is unaware that I am the present CEO. The manager murmured in shock when I mentioned this. The idea that the janitor in front of her was in charge of the business she worked for was beyond her comprehension. Since I experienced the same emotions when my brother first contacted me about it, I could understand her reaction. "You're telling falsehoods. I had no prior knowledge of this. Official documents are used in this company to express important things. I could not possibly be unaware of it." She refused to recognize any fault in herself and accused higher management of failing to tell her. "It makes sense that you were unaware. You were tossing paperwork in the trash because you were so busy." She had complained to me about the trash pickup 10 years prior. I discovered crucial documents in her garbage can a few days after I was instructed to gather the trash. They wound up in her trash when they ought to have been destroyed. I gave the materials to one of her subordinates, who appeared irritated, not wanting to become involved. It seems that she was in the habit of throwing away documents without looking through them, and when her subordinates tried to retrieve them, she would chastise them for interfering. "I tossed papers in the garbage. Don't act absurd. You could not possibly know that." Even now, the management was unable to recall that I had previously been a janitor here. How could somebody have graduated from Harvard with such a bad memory? That she made no effort to recall the janitors' faces is disheartening. She could have felt regret if she had recalled me. "I don't need your belief. That's not the problem at hand. I came to you today with some very crucial news. You did chastise a female employee more than once recently, correct? She's accused you of fraud and has filed a complaint against you. The manager froze the moment I brought up fraud. Her suspicious demeanor was almost like an admission of guilt. I carried on chatting with the manager of No Cylind. Allegedly, in order to inflate the insurance claims, you asked a mechanic to damage cars. This is a strategy employed by unscrupulous businesses. This technique is totally prohibited by our firm. Can you refute this, Nancy the manager? Depending on the degree of damage, the sum for cars that are damaged may vary. Elevating the harm could result in increased earnings for the sales company, a strategy that had gained notoriety. This was a habit that my brother abhorred and had outright forbidden. However, considering that the manager disregarded the regulations regarding waste, she had clearly broken this one. It did not surprise me. That's not anything I would ever order. She was perspiring heavily as she continued. That employee is lying to frame me. Desperately, the manager refuted the charge. The manager would never acknowledge anything, no matter how much I asked. That was around 10 years ago. I gave the proof since I felt it would be pointless to spend more time listening to her pitiful justifications. I've got evidence. Do you intend to refute it? The mechanic you trained admitted it. We have documentation of your conversations. I had spent a lot of time getting ready for this day since I knew she would deny me. We looked into the mechanic who was suspected and went over all the incidents and situations that were related. This is a dream, a nightmare. Considering how well things had gone for her up to this point, the shock was great. The manager, unwilling to face reality, muttered that it was a dream, a delusion. I was meticulous in my preparations because I had been wronged by her before. All of this was done to exact my retribution today. You may think that a minor company rule and a high school dropout are unimportant, but in society, we have to get along with people from diverse backgrounds and coexist with the regulations. You didn't accomplish that. She shook and fell to the ground as I showed her the mechanic's photo on my phone. I was prepared to play the taped evidence if she would not acknowledge it. It was also revealed to us that they were having an affair. To keep the affair a secret, the family-oriented mechanic was forced to commit fraud. We are also aware of your relationship. The mechanic expressed sorrow for his error and claimed that he was intoxicated by beer at the time. We shall consider this malicious and report it to the police if you continue to deny everything. Is that your desired outcome? When the manager realized she had no choice but to hang her head, she finally acknowledged everything. Graduating from Harvard doesn't mean one will always act ethically. The manager acknowledged everything and then admitted to the scam. She had developed the insurance fraud as a result of her involvement with the mechanic. Here, I am the victim. You're painting me as the bad guy, even though I was duped by the man and was frantically attempting to help the business. The former manager continued to claim victim status even at this point. However, the truth became much more unsettling as we examined the specifics in more detail. She had assumed everything would go according to plan and had intended to ruin the mechanic's family before marrying him. He proposed to me. I was just going where he led me. So that implies that it was agreed upon. It appeared as though she would consider excused if it was consenting. The person in charge did not know how to respond to her absurd explanation. Being overly intelligent could lead someone to believe that social norms, as well as business policies, are limitations. The manager received disciplinary action after confessing. The former manager's tragedy didn't end there. Her family turned out to be very loving. Following this discovery, she filed for divorce, giving her ex-husband custody of their kids. She was hospitalized in a psychiatric center due to acute emotional discomfort brought on by the succession of catastrophes. Although one may never be sure where life will go wrong, one thing is certain. Everyone must follow the laws and assume equal responsibility, regardless of intelligence. In a society where everyone is equal before the law, education and employment history are irrelevant. I believed that the ex-manager, who had always placed the responsibility elsewhere, needed to know what it was like to be in the miserable situation she had once denigrated. Things became stressful after coping with the prior manager's penalty, but we made it through with my brother's assistance. I couldn't let the business my brother had fought so hard to establish to fail. I put forth a lot of effort to rebuild our reputation and win back the trust of partners and clients. It was hard every day. In contrast to earlier, I had never had the opportunity to shine myself and had only ever heard of my brother's accomplishments. It's why I enjoyed being busy. I got a job, assumed leadership, and achieved outcomes. I accepted it, even though most people would find it overwhelming. My brother said that I was even better than him, praising my diligence. I'm happy I gave you the company. I'd appreciate you defending the business I founded. As soon as I heard the term family, I was pleased. The person who had always given me the most anxiety was now thanking me. It was my brother. His gratitude made me feel even more satisfied. I wanted to excel and to be of value, but I'd suffered so much from not being expected to perform well and from not achieving the desired outcomes. I shed happy tears as the years of hurt feelings seemed to pay off. I ought to express my gratitude to you. I'm grateful that you are my brother. We both cried together like kids, both in our 50s. I wish to carry on the business with my beloved brother going forward. I'm considering taking a significant step to propagate my thought and get greater exposure because I've been rejected by society. I promise to improve society.